नहीं एक्चुअली डाउन हो यार ये बंदच नाही ना पुढं बंद करून असं म्हणताय का
We would like to welcome on the dais our dignitaries, a senior advisor in campus heads, Professor Y.K. Mitchell, Dean Academies, Professor Hemant Purandare, Dean Placements, Dr. Preeti Saxena, and our guest of honor for the year, Professor Dr. It has been a long day of collecting insights, and now we would like to commence the evening by inviting on stage our rapporteur, Professor Rita Ramtekar, Faculty HR and Soft Skills, to present the summary points for track 1.
Respected Professor Bhushan, dignitaries on the dais, and dignitaries in the audience. Very happy to present to you the summary of the research papers presented in track 1 for the day. Track 1, the morning session, which was chaired by Dr. Satish Ailavati, Director, IMT Hyderabad, and which was co-chaired by Mr. Nishad Ramachandran. Start with the first paper, Dr. Atharwala and Dr. C.S. Balasubramaniam of Kohinoor Business School in their paper on e-banking in India presented the relationship between e-commerce and e-banking and about the ways it links producers, vendors and segments, how banks will in future play a facilitating role to provide cash management services, and they also reflected on the people challenges faced by PSUs in making the people tech savvy. Ms. P. Soumya and Dr. K. Srivastava of IIBF, while speaking on how digital disruptions shape the new age banking industry, spoke of how the digital revolution in the Indian banking industry can be eased through mobile wallets, mobile banking, social media analytics, and big data analytics for better customer experience and reduction of transaction cost. Dr. Preeti Saxena and Ms. Hema Sisodia, in their paper on disruptive innovation in higher education, spoke of how this digital era is an opportunity for India to offer digitized higher education products, thereby extending education to the masses through blended learning and bring about social change. Dr. Manisha Saxena, in a paper on recontouring business by managing the times of digital disruptions, gave an in-depth overview of key factors and segments that brought about the digital disruption. She focused on the need to bring ease of cost and the need to solve people problems and highlighted the loss of human touch in this phenomenon. Dr. Nandi, whose paper was presented in absentia, spoke of the power of the wireless handheld, highlighted the growth of m-commerce through cases of successful companies and their digital models in India and across the globe. Dr. Vandana Srivastav's paper, which was also presented in absentia, spoke of the use of an artificial intelligence-based approach to gain customer insights. This was presented through a literature review on artificial intelligence-based tools used for sentiment analysis of customers. The afternoon session was chaired by Dr. R.K. Srivastava, Director, Siddharam Institute of Management Studies, and was co-chaired by Mr. Nagraj Iyer, who's a successful entrepreneur. Professor Kavita V, in her paper on Internet of Things in Healthcare, Disruption or Hype, differentiated between the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything. She showed how IoT in medical care helps pharmaceuticals benefit through data collected from doctors' prescriptions, which in turn helps pharmaceuticals to manufacture and market medicines to enhance consumer experience. Dr. Lata R. and Professor Priyanka Dhingra presented a case study on the role of National Payments Corporation of India and the challenges that it faced while integrating digitized retail payments in India and showcased their various digital products and services. Dr. Ashish Nair and Mr. Nischal Puri presented their primary research findings on the extent to which digital disruption can affect the financial services industry, which is a highly regulated market. They emphasized the need to understand customers' needs and be what the customer wants you to be. Dr. B. Shafiullah's paper on digital marketing strategies was presented in absentia by Dr. Patil. The paper focused on iSales tools and urban discoveries. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita ma'am. May I please request on stage Professor Rajni Anand, Faculty, Soft Skills, to summarize transcript. Good evening, sir, members of the dais, and ladies and gentlemen in the audience. In track 2, we have a total of 10 papers which explore different facets of digital disruptions, ranging from topics like online shopping behavior, issues like online governance, social merchandising, and also discuss modern technologies for data analysis. The first presenter spoke on the challenges faced by marketers in marketing campaigns for the Gen Y population. Demographic factors like Gen Y's perceptions, attitudes, and preferences were discussed. Presentation 2 focused on the concept of social merchandising, which is used as a means not to just drive conversations about brands, but also to build engagement with the customer. The research tries to measure the effectiveness of the social channels like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
and also identified parameters like visuals, layout, customer engagement, and content. Paper 3 focused on effectively engaging customers on the digital platform, especially in the retail space. The speaker spoke of changes in customers' experiences from word of mouth to word of mouse. He also spoke of the fifth P in marketing called participation. The Tesco's case was discussed as a case of disruptions in digital experiences. Paper 4 focused on the growing online jewelry market and the predictors of its purchase. Customers' perceptions towards this market and also threats faced by it were discussed. Example discussed here was that of Tanish. Suggestions in this paper included improved customer care, overcoming the touch and feel hurdle of jewelry. Presentation 5 focused on how verification has become the new paradigm in the cab rental space in India due to its growth hacking strategy. Factors that make digital disruptions more powerful were discussed here. One of the research questions discussed in this paper was, has verification led to the fall in revenues of auto drivers? Presentation 6 focused on understanding, this presentation was post-lunch. So before lunch, let me just read out the chairperson and the co-chairperson's comments. The chairperson posed a question as to whether demographic classification was really essential for research purposes to understand digital disruptions. Audience responded positively by saying that classification or some basis for classification was necessary. The co-chairperson emphasized upon the need to understand Gen Y and new terms like generation cohorts in today's digital age. Presentation 6, which was post-lunch, focused on understanding latest technologies and trends in work for analyzing of data, and which the marketers can actually use for understanding how customers can be acquired and engaged. The study was from the perspective of the e-commerce industry. Traditional and futuristic digital marketing tools were discussed in the presentation. Presentation 7 focused on factors influencing online grocery purchases. The researcher here has done a comparative analysis of buying behavior through vegetable malls, mandis, and through mobile apps. The presentation reveals statistics like frequency of online grocery buying. The conclusion was that if e-grocers looked at aspects like timeliness, convenience, and quality, they can actually create disruption for the traditional grocers. Presentation 8 focused on online behavior towards seafood with a brand called Pesca Fresh in focus. The presentation here revealed that apart from B2B segment, the B2C segment is also now being targeted as the company's new marketing initiatives. Presentation 9 was actually in absentia and focused on the topic of text mining and how volumes of digital data can be used as a good source of information to improve the CRM, customer relationship management. Presentation 10 was also in absentia. Its focus was on importance of a good online shopping experience. Parameters of an exhilarating shopping experience like perceived benefits, risks, and motivation. Hedonic motivation factors were discussed here. The chairperson commented on the excellent quality of primary research performed on the topics presented and urged on more such primary investigation in the future. The co-chairperson commented that we are still progressing when it comes to the digital arena and that we are still in the need for some more experimentation. At this point, he said that digital marketing, the concept of digital marketing actually starts when the customer clicks on the mouse button. So he also said that from customer and customer engagement, we should now move on to communities and communities engagement, and stressed on the importance of what is known as social media listening. That's it from my side.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request Dr. Deepika Dabke, Faculty HR and Soft Skills, to present the summary points for Track 3.
Good evening, one and all. Track 3, which we had, was a good mix of research papers spanning from concept papers to empirical studies, making an attempt to diagnose, analyze, and prescribe strategies and insights that can help marketers build sustainable business models. The morning session was chaired by Mr. S.K. Palekar, Director Executive Education, SP Jain, and co-chairperson Mr. Prateek Mittal, co-founder postfriday.com. The session started actually with an opening remark by the chairperson that marketing is an adaptation to environment. And internet is one big change that is happening in the environment, given that digital disruption is the most productive and effective way to respond to this changing environment. We started with a number of papers. The first paper was focusing on consumer engagement via mobile apps. The researchers were trying to look at what are the various apps which are available and how they could be categorized. The proliferation of smartphones, increasing internet connectivity, and brand engagement with mobiles in their communication mix makes us look at their impact on consumer brand engagement. So the researchers had provided a conceptual framework by way of which these apps could be categorized and then be looked at from a good business strategy perspective. The second, while we were all talking since morning about digitalization and the excitement around digitalization, the second paper that was presented in our track brought us to ground level realities, where the economists were talking about, is India really ready for digital disruption? And they had a very interesting perspective to offer to both academicians and marketeers, where they have been saying that India's ranking on the Network Readiness Index, as per the report, has been consistently falling. And this can be attributed to low individual usage and low penetration, weak infrastructure, despite high affordability. So, on this note of caution, India has to leverage its ICT sector to achieve sustainable digital disruptions and not just excitement, but have certain actionable points where this penetration could be possible. The next paper went on to talk about social listening, trying to look at the interactions between existing customers and the potential customers and what are its relationship for marketers. The entire focus was to analyze various aspects of social listening and how to act or look at it as functional building blocks to create better engagement with customers. The co-chairperson also had a note to make here that in addition to social listening as a business of its own, one should also look at the current apps and all the data that is coming out of small data that comes out of these apps to see whether marketers are effectively leveraging these intelligence or these insights for a better customer engagement. The next paper focused on digital disruptions with respect to diabetes management and the readiness of healthcare workers to adopt this particular technology for the prescription to its patients. Focus was on wearable technology. The conclusions were that there are two main aspects with respect to this. One is the affordability and accessibility of wearables for the patients. There is a growth or there is a room for digital disruption in the space of non-invasive wearable devices, and one needs to see how businesses would integrate to make best use of the technology available. We moved on to look at what are the barriers faced by SMEs in the adoption of e-commerce. The researchers had a primary study where they had interviewed 27 SMEs, trying to look at what are their barriers that they face as far as adoption of e-commerce. Some of the barriers which the themes are categorized into financial, knowledge, technology, and environment related barriers. And the researchers tried to provide certain solutions that would help SMEs to become e-commerce ready. The morning session concluded with the remarks from the co-chairperson saying that it is very important and pertinent that academicians and business professionals should join together, collaborate, and try to see how a number of research studies, etc., could come out into actual market strategies so that both of them could make best use of the knowledge that they possess. They also spoke about areas where apps could be best utilized, or you could have some mobile small sites which could be developed, because ultimately everybody may have a smartphone, but the memory that a smartphone possesses may not allow everybody to go digital the way we think they would, and therefore some caution needs to be taken when we are prescribing strategies to certain businesses. We also had very interesting terms which were given to us. Things like fear of missing out, the FOMO effect, which is making us look at technology further, and the FANG, the Facebook, Amazon, Google, and the Netflix, which is making fixating people to the digital devices. The afternoon session was chaired by the chairperson C. Babu, who is the director of Durga Devi Saraf Institute of Management, and co-chaired by co-founders Mr. Nitin Jain and Anupam Sorab, co-founders of Machada. The afternoon session was mainly looking at concept papers. First particular paper had an interesting topic on economy of skills, trying to look at how digital disruption is affecting the workforce and the employment opportunities, and what is it that one can do in order to create a good employment skill for this particular, for various sectors. The second paper focused on blogging as a marketing tool. An attempt was made to develop a conceptual model in terms of how blogging can help in the marketing efforts, and what are the various issues involved with this particular effort. We moved on to go into personal branding, not just consumer branding or a particular. The focus was on Tom Peters' brand you concept. The basic idea of this particular paper was to say that while there are digital options which will help people to brand themselves better, there should be a mix between the analog as well as digital personal branding tactics to get the best benefits. Finally, we had a paper which spoke about why big companies fail to react in this digital disruptive world. The idea was to see that there is a need to be sensitive to changing market scenarios and technological shifts. This is very critical for businesses, and research should be throwing light on what would happen in the next few years so that we could start strategizing today itself for better sustainable business models which can also be scalable. On this particular note from the co-chairperson, we ended our session, and we believe that all these insights which we gather throughout the day would help both marketeers as well as academicians to look at the entire gamut of digital disruption in a new light. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Professor Y.K. Bhushan to felicitate our guest of honor, Professor Datta Nadkarni. Now I would request our conference coordinator, Professor Priyanka Mathur, to kindly felicitate the guests on the dais. May I now request Professor Bhushan to give his closing remarks on the whole conference for the day?
Friends, we have traveled through a wide variety of areas. Sorry for my throat. I didn't speak, but I lost my throat. Sorry. Looking back, I think it's been a sojourn through the realm of ideas. And that's what a conference is meant to be. Although there is a converging point, this digital disruption, there is a whole divergence and diversity of ideas, views, and terrains that we covered. Look at the range of areas covered. There's hardly any area which has been left out in the world of commerce. And in exploring every area, I think the focus all along has been on the customer. And I think that's the core of digital disruption, or this kind of disruption that we are talking about. As I mentioned this morning, the term disruption really came from Christensen's work on innovation. And when he talked about disruption, he was talking of one technology disrupting the other and making way for innovation. Now that has been applied to the field of marketing. And since marketing is ultimately concerned about the customer, I think the core of digital disruption is in how to serve the customer better and how to serve him more economically. In that quest, now new technological platforms and tools are available. So we have talked about various devices which have become available. You have the internet and the mobile smartphone and so forth. These are the various kinds of devices which are becoming available. I sometimes scan through the catalogs of the e-tailers, and the other day when I was looking through the Amazon's list of devices, as an economist in the area of technology, I was struck by the discovery that there is something like a stick computer, which actually replaces the desk computer and even the laptop. You don't need all that because you can just link it up with the TV and have the use of the computer, whether it's desktop or laptop. So this again is a disruptive technology because you replace all those things, just link it up, and it serves as the supporting device. I don't quite know all the terms myself. As I said, I'm an ignoramus as far as technology is concerned, but I'm very much excited by the technology. And like a child, I fall for anything new in technology that comes up. That's my own weakness for technology. And I wish that I have a little more instruction in technology so that I can make use of it more efficiently. But coming to this seminar, this conference that has gone on since morning, we have talked about banking, we have talked about the payment systems, we have talked about pharmacy, we have talked about the Mandi, we have talked about all the different areas. I think consumer marketing, of course, has been to the fore. So we are talking not only of the behemoths, the giants, which are the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals or the Amazons of the world, but also some of the smaller spheres, including the SMEs, where we are exploring the adoption of these disruptive technologies. And I think the way the world stands today, it is difficult to stop the kind of movement that has started with these disruptive technologies, and that to the advantage of the world. The only note that one would like to caution here is that if these disruptive technologies were to disrupt the human force, which it would probably do, because it does mean replacement of workers, replacement of human force, reduction of human force. I think that would be a bit of a disaster for the mankind, particularly in a country like ours, where employment is certainly a top priority. And therefore, one would like to go with the suggestion that I came across the other day and liked it very much, that we should employ technology which complements human force and does not supplant human force. Which means we should provide technologies which can help people perform better and not reduce the manforce, but have more of output and more of productivity. And perhaps, when we talk about disruptive technologies, we should keep that in mind. Let's adopt technologies which certainly benefit the consumer, but do not necessarily lead to large-scale reduction of manpower. So that can certainly be disastrous in a country like ours. In other countries, perhaps that might be in order, but as far as our own country is concerned, I think the employment angle has to be kept in mind. And therefore, complementary disruptive technologies, if I might use that term, is what we really require. The summaries which have been presented here by the rapporteurs are indeed excellent, because I sat through some of the sessions myself. And I couldn't have done these kinds of summaries myself, but I was so much carried away by the presentations. To keep one's head level in listening to these and call out these points, I think, is no mean task. And it's been performed very, very well indeed by my colleagues, Professor Rita Ranglekar, Rajini Anand, and Deepika Tapke. All the three have done a commendable job, and I think they need a big hand. Now we come to the end of this day of the two-day conference that we have, and we have with us Mr. Dr. Nadkarni, who will be duly introduced to you. We shall now listen to him. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Just like sir said, we have with us today an eminent personality in the world of academia, Professor Datta Nadkarni. Professor Nadkarni has directed marketing for Fortune 500 companies and several startups. As the VP Marketing, he has developed integrated marketing strategies for global brands like Farmers Insurance, Philips Electronics, Vision Express, Lens Crafters, Coca-Cola, Colgate, Palmolive, MasterCard, PartyPoker.com, and several other startups. As a consultant, board member, or strategist, he has helped several startups and new ventures, including HealthD, SoftSolusa, Duon Call, RPG Advertising, MasterCard, and AccountNow. He has also served as a member of the board of directors or advisory council for the Commonwealth Club, American Diabetes Association, Asian Business Association, Heart of Humanity, Tycon.org, India Community Center, and F for Freedom. Parallel to his corporate career, Sir is also a professor of strategic marketing and teaches MBA and BS courses in business, marketing, strategy, international marketing, advertising, consumer behavior, social media marketing, e-commerce, and internet marketing at California State University, Foothill College, Golden Gate University, University of San Francisco, St. Mary's College, and UC Berkeley. He has been a frequent speaker at various USA and international conferences and events, and has an MBA from University of Cincinnati, an MS Advertising from Northwestern University, and an MMS from the University of Bombay. Sir, I will please request you to address the conference.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think you all listened very patiently to all the different presentations, and they were truly wonderful. I got to learn a lot of things. I think it's my throat now. Couple of thoughts. The presentations are wonderful. They are very much focused on the Indian marketplace. Today I'll walk you through a couple of perspectives on the international front. I've been in the US since 1984. I live in Silicon Valley, which is the epicenter of a lot of change and disruptions that have happened in the last several decades. First and foremost, what's the reason that these disruptions have happened in Silicon Valley and not anywhere else? Now they're beginning to happen here and elsewhere in the world. There was a strong partnership between government, which is DARPA, defense part of US, the universities like Stanford and so on. And that led to what you call the Sand Hill Road, which is right outside Stanford campus, where all the venture capitalists have offices. So we had a combination of thought leaders, government backing, and private money coming together. And this has happened since before World War II. That sort of partnership between educational institutions, government, and money has now started happening elsewhere in other territories of the world. So that's probably why we are beginning to see that happen in India as well. Changing subjects, the second point I want to talk about is how India is an agricultural country and we are transitioning. If you look at the transition of countries, most countries were agricultural economies. From there, they moved to more of an industrialized product and production-centric economies. From there, they moved on to more of a information age economies, and then maybe financial. India has the unique position of being both, at both ends of this continuum. And we have also reached a stage where we are among the fastest, the world's fastest in smartphone adoption and growth. So increasingly we are yet an agricultural economy, and on the other extreme we are also going to be a high-tech economy, which we are. So there are a lot of possible opportunities in between these two very wide-ranging capabilities that India has. The third thing I wanted to mention was about the aspect of how information changes. There is a concept of half-life, right? We are all familiar with that. The half-life of all human knowledge, if we were to look at it, I can't remember the exact source of this information, but at the turn of the century, half-life of human knowledge was about 200 years, meaning everything we know, half of it changed every 200 years. That went drastically down near World War II, when it went down to about 40 years. You progress that further in the year 2000, it was down to about 20 years. So the acceleration with which the information is changing is huge, because there's a lot of new information and new research that's coming out. So if you continue to progress in that direction, our grandkids will be teaching us. And we see that happening already in terms of how our kids are looking at smartphones. They're born with it. When I first went to US in 84, the only computer I'd seen was in the JBIMS third floor, which was a gigantic IBM computer, where all the university exam papers used to get monitored, processed. When I landed there in US, I was given a laptop, I was given a desktop, given a stack of questionnaires. I was a research assistant to my professor. And I had to go through all of that and code them so that you would be able to present some paper. And I was completely panicked because I never used a computer. Though, of course, I learned in a few weeks and came up to speed on that. Today, we all have more computing power on our cell phones than probably those desktops that we had in the mid-80s. So that's how fast technology is changing. Now, today's whole presentations done by various groups and researchers has focused on the digital disruption aspect. Now, there are some basic things that any country needs, and India is very fast developing that. And some of them are the connectivity issues, some of them are to do with planning the future in terms of government policies, and so on. I won't jump into much of that for now. Let me use the PowerPoint. Can we start? Have you heard of that's not my music. this is sort of a quick summary of my background. I think we have already covered that. Now human understanding can be converted into 3 or 4 main steps, and this is another depiction of that. At the very initial level, we watch events, we can observe events. You go a little level below that, you see patterns and trends. You go further down, you see the underlying structures. And you go further down, you understand the mental models that lead to transformation. A simplistic example of that is things would fall from a height. And then Newton was sitting under the tree, and the apple fell on his head. So he said, oh, things fall from heights. And then that led him to think further, and he came up with the whole world of calculus, the rate of change of distance, rate of change of acceleration, and so on. And most of human understanding is like this. All of us here who are researchers are trying to develop those models for the different aspects that you have researched on. The second thing I want to mention is looking at all the different diverse research papers and content that we created, that we presented here today. A lot of it is like a gigantic jigsaw with several connecting pieces missing. So when I look at it, try to grasp it, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose. It's just huge amount of information which you're still trying to drink with a straw. But there is tons of information coming at you. When that's happening today to all of us, not just because of the conference that I'm here on the podium to talk about, but day in and day out, from the point we get up in the morning to the point we sleep at night, including sleeping with our smartphone to make sure we didn't miss any texts or WhatsApp or emails. It's familiar, right? All of us are going through that. Now, at the other end of it, there are those big data people who are analyzing all this information. They're analyzing when your machine went on, when your smartphone went on, what types of messages you got, from where you got it, and so on. So it's like the Hindi word Chitragupta. There is some Chitragupta out there monitoring how we use all that information. Now, one example of predictive analytics that two examples that I was involved with. One was using Facebook mentions. Kaiser Permanente, which is a big HMO, healthcare maintenance organization in several southern states, including California, used was mentions of the word flu, headache, kids didn't go to school, words like that from social listening, and actually developing a model which showed how the flu migrates from the east coast to the west coast. This was on Facebook mentions. And it has absolutely practical applications because they have huge number of facilities. They are in high density population centers across the US. And as soon as you know the flu starts, there is a certain predictability of how it moves. And typically the east coast is where it starts because it's colder, and then it starts migrating to the west. And I'm in California, so we could actually see that pattern, and that had operational impact. They could plan for additional doctors, nurses. They could plan for having vaccines available, the vaccine shots. So they could actually predict that the flu will hit San Francisco in 2 weeks. So what preparations do we need before we get there? So these are very practical applications. So even if the data exists in terms of a fire hose coming at you, you can be selective. What I'm getting at is segmenting, targeting, and positioning. The traditional concepts in marketing are very much part of what we need. The other example was utilizing disease data at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, which is a big cancer research institution. So we took all the different types of data available for the last 30 years and converted them into the predictive analytics algorithms, which showed that the various models, various visual depictions of how various treatments are useful and which treatments are useful. If you had the internet connection, I could have shown you some of those demos. So there are a lot of practical applications of predictive analytics. It depends on what your focus is, what you want to use it for, and it's in real time. The other side of any innovation is the change management aspect. We all have gone through that in our careers, in our lives, in our professional lives. At the top, you have issues around quality, cost, and time. Let's stick with the work environment. There are certain issues that come up. I was just talking earlier with the professors here from the banking industry. My experience with a certain bank in India that I've had an account since I was a child, and what type of experiences. How many of you are with a private bank in India? How many of you are with a public sector bank? Which one has good service?
Private.
Okay, thank you. So I'll make my decision.
We said Bank of Maharashtra.
Okay.
I have both actually, but Bank of Maharashtra beats IndusInd and HDFC and everything.
All right. Good recommendations. Any others?
I got my house through State Bank of India.
Okay.
Always invest.
Okay. The reason I'm asking this is there are some things we say about digital disruption. We want things to move forward, etc. Now, I'm with Bank of India. I have been since I was 5 years old. So I'm here, I have to get certain things done. I'm now a US citizen, so I have to fill out the FATCA form, I have to fill out the KYC form, I have to stand in line to withdraw cash from my own account. It has to meet with 3 different physical approvals going through one person standing at the window, etc., etc. So, and yes, they do have an online portal, which once you fill out the detailed form, they will mail you the code or what you call a password for it 4 weeks later. Now I've been coming to US every year. Every time I come, the very first day I go to the bank hoping the 4 weeks elapses before I have to leave for US. So 3 times it has happened. I finish, the code words arrive after I've left for US again. By then it's too late. My mom couldn't use the computer. So there are some practical operational issues around, though there is an online strategy, though there is e-banking, there are practical issues around how the human behavior can be different and not as useful if you don't have those two coordinated. I brought this up because I was involved with launching a whole e-business initiative for a very large company in US called Farmers Insurance. They were an 80-year-old company. They do personal lines insurance. They're about 12 billion in annual sales, and 19,000 agents, 15,000 employees. And I was reporting to the chairman to bring about change in a gigantic organization like this. So when you realize that, I really appreciate the tip of the iceberg that I saw. There are so many issues underneath that it takes so much time and effort to get going. I think I could talk on for another hour. Being a professor, I can just keep on talking. But the 3 things I do want to leave you with is disruption. Digital disruption is here to stay. It will continue to disrupt, and it will continue to disrupt at an accelerated rate. That's how information is. Second, we need to prepare and see how the real world and the internet world can be coordinated, like the example of the bank. Only then you develop the additional competitiveness. Otherwise, you have your left hand running faster than your right hand, and it's not coordinated. And third, I would say is think through which things will bring a strategic advantage for your institution. Whether you're in a company, educational institution, in an ecosystem, build an ecosystem that brings the maximum strategic advantage to you. The example of Stanford, the example of how Silicon Valley became what it is today, the center of focus of all the innovation, a lot of the innovation. India and Bombay particularly is very well suited for that. Bombay is the financial capital, it's also an educational capital. maybe some partnership with the central and state governments might be another area to go. I have another 40 slides, I won't go into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for such an enlightening and illuminating address. Next, I would like our Dean Academics, Professor Hemant Purandare sir, to give his concluding remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making this conference firstly a great success, and I invite you tomorrow at our IBS campus for the roundtable discussion on travels and triumphs of disruptors, followed by the prize distribution for the best paper. So thank you very much once again, and have a pleasant evening.
छोड़ दो क्या था तो भाई क्रेडिट वीडियो तो डालना चलो चलो हाँ ये तो देखिए नाम आ मैंने इंडस्ट्री क्रेडिट में पहले खत्म हो मैं उसे नहीं किया क्या कर